Welcome to Unsigned 518. I am here with Michael Francis McCarthy. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you? Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's going well. We had now, and I can't remember because I always, sometimes shit comes up like, being DIY musicians or like traveling musicians. There's always but I feel like we were scheduled, and then there was either like was it like a snowstorm? I feel like.
Yeah, I think it was late March, and there were like 3 significant snowstorms this winter, and one of them hit.
Yeah, the day that you were gonna do it. I think it was
got snowed in here.
Yeah, it was like It was like a foot or more of snow in the springtime or something, if I remember correctly. But
I think you're right. Well, I'm glad we could reschedule it, Andy. Thanks for having me in here.
Yeah, totally. And I'm glad that we're doing it on such a nice day. And you're actually leaving from here to go to a gig, right?
Yeah, that's right. I just started working for Hunter Mountain Brewery, and so I'm playing there this afternoon, 3 to 5. Yep.
Nice. I love that. So I guess what we want to do is kind of go back, and we were talking a little bit before we got rolling. We want to tell your story, your relationship with music, how it, because to write your own original stuff is there has to be a story to it. You know what I mean? Nobody just all of a sudden wakes up and it's like, oh, I write music now. So I guess in your own words, like go back as far as you want or as abbreviated as you want, kind of tell us your story.
Sure. Well, thanks. Yeah. So, my earliest music memories, I was born in Colombia and lived in Bolivia till I was almost 4 years old. And my earliest music memories were of hearing Bolivian folklore music from artists like Savia Andina and Luis Rico. And that stuff really made an impression on me. And, when you're a kid, everything kind of mixes together in your mind. So, like, while my mom was playing Bolivian folklore artists, my dad was playing the first Led Zeppelin album.
Nice.
And you kind of can't tell things apart, so it all sort of melded in my mind. And then... I was always into music, always whistling and singing along, and my parents identified that and put a guitar in my hands when I was like 4. I took lessons with this amazing woman, this bluegrass and folk player in rural New Hampshire, where I grew up from the age of 4 onward. Her name was Elena Del Rossi, and I've learned fundamentals from her and from the Hal Leonard guitar method book. I think my first couple songs were like Green Sleeves, the Irish song.
I was going to say like Michael, Row Your Boat to Shore
exactly.
or something.
So you probably know that book.
Yeah, I do.
It's a generational classic, dude. Ode to Joy, Blues in G. And it's crazy. I went back and looked at that song recently. It was like I was looking at one of my current set lists. I was like, Jesus, this is all the stuff I'm still doing. But it made a big impact, and just learning all that first position folk chord stuff really laid a foundation for me. And then, like everybody else in the early to mid 90s, when I was like 10 years old in 1994, I started stealing my older brother's, Nirvana and Offspring, Green Day, Soundgarden, and White Zombie. And then somebody else, turned me on to Metallica, and then from there to Pantera and Slayer. So I ended up coming into this. I had like the Bolivian folklore plus the folk, and then got into alternative that put me into metal. And then by the time I was like 10 or 11, I was really into electric guitar music and all that. And then in high school, my uncle and aunt were like, this kid's going to need Dark Side of the Moon. And they were right, and they gave it to me. I was like, this is weird. What's going on here? And then I became a teenage stoner and was like, oh, I see what Dark Side of the Moon's about. And then I ended up from there going to Grateful Dead and Allman Brothers stuff. And, I went to college, and after college did a couple other lines of work, but was playing gigs. And, I'm 39 now. I've been more or less full-time gigging since I was in my like late 20s, about 12, 13 years now. And as far as songwriting, I think it's sort of an alchemy of all those things. The Bolivian folklore and the metal is always in there, but the main essence of what I'm doing is American roots music. I could go on and on about musical influences, but that's the long and short of it, Andy.
And then, so you said that you've been touring and like doing music for 13 or so years. Like, is that about when you started writing original, or did you start like cutting your teeth on those influences? Like, because like for me, like I was like the same way. Like almost every influence that you mentioned, I had some experience with. Yeah. And when I first started playing guitar, all I wanted to do was be like, oh, let me find that Metallica riff, let me find that Pearl Jam riff, and like figure it out. And is that kind of the same thing? Or?
Yeah, I think in a way those are generational rites of passage,
right?
To some degree, it's like you pick up a band for a while and they're your favorite band. You're obsessed with them. You learn what you can from them, and then you move on. And maybe you come back again later in life. Like I had a time of coming back to Nirvana and trying to absorb some more of that. So I think with everything that's like that, like the Grateful Dead. Once a Deadhead, always a Deadhead. I learned as much as I could, put them down for a while so I wouldn't get sick of it, picked it back up. But to get to your question, and I think this is also kind of a common arc, which is when people grow up with grunge, punk, metal, rock, you want to be in a band. And a lot of us, I think, come to solo and acoustic playing maybe a little at another stage in life. Although, like, acoustic was always part of what I was doing. But anyway, like, my first gigs were when I was, like, 19, 20. I played in a metal band. We were based first in Florida and then in Boston. And we played mainly around Massachusetts. And that was sort of the height of the Western Mass metal revolution of the early to mid-aughts. And so, we would play out in some of our craziest shows like Worcester, Chicopee, Springfield area. But I was pretty focused on metal for a time. And then in, I guess it was like 2010, I went overseas for a couple of years. The band went on hold. And my co-founder of the band and best friend contracted leukemia, or, developed leukemia, I guess you'd say. Don't really contract it. And he unfortunately passed away. And so when I came back to the States in 2011, I was trying to get my feet under me, and we were planning to keep on playing metal. But while I was overseas, I'd been playing acoustic shows to pay my rent and to interact with the community. And the solo acoustic thing was always part of what I was doing. So it became more of like work for money and as a career pursuit. Around that time, it would have been like 2010, 2011, and I've kind of just kept on with that, and I've continued to do some band work here and there, but my main pursuit has been solo electrified acoustic American roots.
Right, and it's, a unique, I've seen your stuff on social, like it's a unique thing that you got going, and I as someone who likes music and likes all kinds of music, I appreciate that, but I also like the carve your own path mentality, you know what I mean? Like that's why I'm doing this fucking podcast out of my garage, because I'm like, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. And
carve your own path kind of guy.
And you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I love that, you brought not just an acoustic guitar, but you brought your amps. And, when you were coming in, you were like, part of my thing is like I use my mic stand as a bass drum, and I was like, I'm not, and it was like, so you've got your own thing, and it's interesting, and I am stoked to have you do a performance in here. So, what's the first song that you're going to do in here?
So I'm going to play a tune that came out off of my last album, Check Engine, and this song's called Northern Roots.
Northern Roots. And what we're going to do also for those listening is I'm going to video this and put it up on YouTube. So you can check out Michael Francis McCarthy on YouTube doing Northern Roots. And we're going to get started right now. So let's hear Northern Roots, Michael Francis McCarthy, and then we'll be right back.
Traveling the north way along upon the ridge, Sighted by the falcon who roosts upon the bridge. Tumbling pins of thundering far off in the hills. Something strange going on deep in them cats' skills. It's a Yankee kind of thing. I don't try to sound like I'm from Texas when I sing. I don't own a Stetson nor a pair of cowboy boots, 'cause I come from northern roots. Summer's only fleeting, and soon it will be past. I don't trust the sunshine, 'cause I know it never lasts. I don't like to talk when I don't have much to say. Winter is approaching, and there's work to do today. It's a Yankee kind of thing. We never had plantations and never bowed to kings. Founders of the nation wearing wool and steel-toe boots. Well, we come from northern roots. Factories and farmland, lumber, coal, and steel. From brickyard to boatyard, we keep an even keel. When you have no slave, you must labor on your own. The truth is cold and hard when you're made of stone. It's a Yankee kind of thing. We don't need a Bible belt to hold up our blue jeans. Shirt collar tarnished with oil, soil, and soot. We come from northern roots. We come from northern roots.
All right, that was Northern Roots. Michael Francis McCarthy here, live in the Dazzle Den. And again, if you're listening, you can go to my YouTube channel and check out the video of that. So, Michael, we were saying before we got rolling, like you travel all over the place and have gigs. I mean, literally, like Philly up to super far north, like Massachusetts, all over the place. And where are you actually central to, I guess?
So, I mean, I've lived in a couple areas of the Hudson Valley and Capital Region since I've been living in New York, these last 6, almost 7 years. But for really, to me, my home base is Albany. I play a 3 or 4 hour radius around here, so I go out to the Finger Lakes, north to Lake Placid, east out into Massachusetts, and south as far as Philadelphia, sometimes down to Virginia. But really, to me, my home base, where my fan base is Albany region, and I also consider that to really be the heart of, in some ways, the Northeast music scene. But I think increasingly the 518 area code is where it's at for music culture in New York.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's, I don't want to say friendly, everything's just cheery and whatever, but this music scene compared to some of the bigger markets that are, close by, New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, like it seems to be more connected here. You know what I mean? Whereas it's not like, and I sometimes am speaking just from looking at like bigger markets. Like when I was in radio, I didn't pay as much attention to local. It was always bigger, and it was always competition, and it was always like, but you'd have bands in the same city that don't even know who the other band is simply because they weren't the same genre, whereas like here, everybody knows everybody. And I think that is what makes it unique here, is that it's, I don't know, it's like a melting pot of genres getting along and hanging out together.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's a cohesiveness to the Albany area music scene. And part of it, and I've seen this in different parts of the country because I've lived in a couple parts of the country, and I was based in Florida, I'm based in Texas at one point. But one thing I've seen is some of the more competitive markets, they're competitive because of how big they are, which also ends up playing into the cost of living. So you end up having people who, a lot of musicians get forced out of these markets as they become bigger and hotter. And it causes sort of economic dislocation. It causes housing issues. It drives down the price of labor. But what you see in 518 is like, look, everything's getting expensive, right? But like people who live in New York are like paying like $3,000 rent, living in a shoebox and doing something else like 60 hours a week. And they play gigs when they can. But like up here in the 518, like people live here and gig here. And because of how it's positioned as an intersection point between major highways, it's a great like
stopping
fulcrum
point
for
yeah.
touring.
Yeah.
It sends you to points north, south, east, and west. So it's there's a working class element that makes it so that people can live where they play. And so it's a great place to meet other musicians and to find community.
And one thing I found too is like bands coming through, like, in some of the venues, like that would have like touring acts that, are making a one night stop on a bigger tour or whatever, is a lot of the times they'll look for local acts as support. You know what I mean? And you'll be like, oh shit, look at that local band that I know, are opening for this national touring act at like, Empire Live or whatever. Like,
well, what I look for in a healthy music scene is I want to see sort of like a complete ecosystem where there are rooms for national acts.
Right.
There are rooms for local acts across numerous genres, and also that it's located strategically in an area that people like to tour through. So like there are some places like, for example, I used to live in Pensacola, Florida, where it was like, Pensacola is tiny, but because it's on I-10 and it's a key stopping point between New Orleans and Jacksonville, all the legends would be passing through. They'd want to stop there. But likewise, I find with this area, it's just what you're saying, that like because of its geographical location and because there's this critical mass of people who live and play here, it just invites national acts to come through. And so there's an on-ramp to success out of the Albany area.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I love that. I love that view on it, because some people shit on, like I've seen it on social, like people shitting on the scene, and it's like, open your eyes, man, because like, look, it's happening. It's like,
take your pick. If you want to go, if you want to go live in a suburb of New Jersey, if you want to go to New York or L.A., go ahead.
Right.
We'll see you in 2 years with your tails between your legs.
Yeah, I moved out to L.A. like, I don't know, probably 25 years ago, and like it was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And I got out there, and I was like, oh my god,
I am so lonely, and I work as a dishwasher.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, this sucks so bad. I lasted, I think, like 14 months or 15 months, something like that, before I
came back
home
with a hole in your soul and a desire to see your friends.
And just being like, because I lived in Vermont at the time, and just being like, oh my god, I love Vermont. Like, I love this part of the country, because like seeing, like being like, oh, Hollywood, that's going to be so cool to be like, hey, you want to go out tonight? And it means going down to Hollywood, and then going down there and seeing people shooting heroin on the sidewalk, and like junkies passed out asleep on like someone's celebrity walk, or the walk of fame there. You'd literally be like, that dude is shooting heroin on,
I think it's part of the musician's odyssey, which is when you're young, you're like, man, I can't do anything in this town. I gotta go. So like, I spent some time in New Orleans. I spent some time in Austin. Now, both of those places have brilliant musicians. Great places to go to shows. Great place to have on your business card. Horrible places to work.
Right.
Horrible places to pay rent. And you go to New Orleans and you're hoping to find this American roots music dream, and it's there, but you got to look for it, and you got to look past the guy passed out in the gutter on fentanyl, which is, and he's everywhere, and it's a tragedy. But just like with Austin, great music town in a lot of ways. Terrible town for working. Price of labor super driven down. Price of rent through the roof.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I love it here. And I don't have, I don't ever have any aspirations to be outside of here, because to me, everything that I need is right here. You know what I mean? And literally, on this half acre of land, pretty much, everything I need is right here. And, I can drive to, I'm close to Saratoga, I'm close to Albany, I'm close to Glens Falls, and whatever, And
if you want to go see underground, hardcore metal,
I can see that.
Boom, go down
if I want to
Albany.
go
If you want to see stadium shows, go to Albany.
Absolutely. And even Glens Falls has, the Civic Center there has some big national acts. And that's 18 minutes from where we're sitting right now. It's there's shit happening here all the time.
An idea that took me a long time to come to understand, and part of it is I had to discover it empirically, and part of it was advised to me by people along the way career-wise, which is you find a market and you develop your loyalty to that market and grow within it, and then the goal is to move laterally from that market to others. So it's Albany gives you a path to grow your career. And then, like you say, if you meet other bands who are on a touring circuit and plugged into a bigger picture national music scene, the path to that isn't go to New Orleans, go to Austin, go to New York, go to L.A. The path is grow, put your head up above the surface in the 518, and then develop those contacts. If you're from L.A., or maybe it was different before the internet, right? When Sunset Strip was the place to go and have big hair and do glam metal and make it a thing in 1987. Go ahead and do that, because then you're part of that localized community as it's growing and thriving. But or if you if you grew up in New Orleans and you're part of the loyalty, royalty of Cajun derived, that's a whole thing. But again, that's about the local community. So I think sometimes when us small town musicians from the Northeast, we're I think the thing I have to do is leave where I'm from and go find the coolness in some city somewhere.
And it's not. Definitely not. All right, well, cool. Do you want to play another song for the folks?
I do, yeah. And this next tune I'm going to play is called Better Than Your Phone. And by the way, it's Father's Day today, so this one's for my kid. Better Than Your Phone.
Fantastic. Well, let's listen to Better Than Your Phone, Michael Francis McCarthy. And again, go over to my YouTube channel, just at Unsigned518, and catch the video of it. So here's Better Than Your Phone, and then we'll be right back to wrap it up.
Late summer sunlight, I'm all alone. Learn to walk and talk and do things on my own. Papa, ain't I better than your phone? After work is done and bills get paid, you only get so many carefree days. I don't wanna scroll them all away. Let me see your eyes. Can you see mine? I've been waiting for a moment of your time. Guess I got to just talk to you online. You know there was nothing like a smile from a toll booth operator when you were keeping in the lines, trying to take your sweet time home. Late summer sunlight, I'm all alone. Learn to walk and talk and do things on my own. Baby, ain't I better than your phone?
All right, that was Better Than Your Phone. Michael Francis McCarthy live here in the Dazzle Den. So, Michael, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day, especially on Father's Day and a busy day. You have a gig to go to right directly from here. So I really appreciate it, And before we go, just like all my guests, I want to give you a chance to say what I refer to as your gratitude. So, microphone is all yours.
All right. Well, first, as far as gratitude, let me just thank you, Andy, because I have to tell you, there were probably like 5 different people who, in talking about members of the 518 music community that I should get to know, numerous people were like, you know who you should do? Go talk to Andy and go on Unsigned518. So let me start with saying to you specifically, thanks for doing the show, not just for me, but for this scene. Your reputation precedes you and is strong.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, man.
So thank you. And so, to zoom out from that a little bit, my biggest gratitude is for the people in the 518, Albany, Capital Region, and Catskills region, people who are givers in the world of music, who are working to contribute to the scene, people who go to everybody else's shows, cover other people's shows. So that includes you. That includes, Ralph Renna, my good buddy Matty D. These are people who are lovers of the music scene. Or people like Greg Bell at Guthrie Bell. He's the work he's put in to lift up bands and make good shows, fill rooms with music. People like that are who I'm grateful for. And then just as far as in my personal life, I mean, like Ralph is a buddy of mine. I'm really grateful to the fans in this, and this is cliche, but fans in this region who have been coming out to my shows. This is a place I play out in Nassau, S&S Farm Brewery. And that crowd has been growing with me over these last 6 years. So I'm just really grateful to the fans in the Capital Region. And beyond that, grateful to my family. What else can I say? Grateful to God.
All right. So he is Michael Francis McCarthy. I am Andy Scullin. This is Unsigned 518. And I'll see you on the road. Unsigned 518 is produced and hosted by me, Andy Scullin. New episodes are available every week wherever you stream podcasts. If you would like to help support the show, please like and subscribe wherever you are listening. Or you could buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/unsigned518. If you would like to advertise on the show, send me an email at unsigned518@gmail.com. And to be a guest on the show, reach out to me through Instagram at unsigned518. Take care of one another, and I'll see you next week.